Hello, welcome to the daily drawing. Today we're going to be drawing a koala. They're really cute. Alright, so to get started we're going to do a circle for the bottom of the body. And then we're going to turn it into an egg shape, kind of like what we did with the sloth before. So here's the circle representing the bottom of the body. The egg shape's going to take up that top part and it's kind of tilting a little bit more upwards and towards the right. So what we're going to do is we're just going to draw a frowny face on the top of that egg shape. That's a little bit tilted to the side, but not too far. That way we get a really good egg shape for our body. And of course, if you're good at drawing eggs, you can do it without doing the circle first. I just think it makes it a little easier. And for those of you that struggle drawing eggs, there you go. All right, so now that I have my body shape, what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlap the head on top of the body. Here we can see that if this is the top edge of the body, the head overlaps very slightly onto the body, not very much. This is just a small overlap area, and that the head is very much a circular shape. If I compare the size of the head to the size of the body, the head's pretty big. I would be able to fit maybe like 1.5 or 2 heads in the body, so it's not super big, or it's not super small. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw kind of sort of on the top right of the body, right around this area. I'm going to first start off with that overlap so I don't forget to add that. And then I'm just going to draw a circular shape, taking up a good half of that top part right there. And then it's a good rule of thumb, just kind of measure it afterwards and make sure you got it about the size that you want it. This is pretty close to the size that I want to have for my head. If you feel like you drew yours too small or too big, feel free to edit or change that. All right, now that I have the head drawn, I'm going to go ahead and draw the neck. The neck is just connecting the head to the body here. And then the arm is overlapping it, but I can actually kind of visualize where the body would be connected to the neck over here as well. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a parenthesis connecting the side of the cheek to the back of the body like this. And then I'm going to repeat that same process over here, just with the opposite direction of that parenthesis. So it looks almost like a bowling ball pin that's really, really wide at the top of it, of course. Once I have that done, then I can erase a little bit of that neck area. And I can also erase the inside of the body on the head. I am going to go ahead and leave the actual head shape itself, though. That way it makes it easier for me to draw like the jaw line and stuff like that later. All right, now that I have my head, neck, and body, now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and start focusing just on the face first, and then we'll come back to the arms and legs later. All right, so because this is another picture where we are looking at it directly at us, so it's looking straight at us, I'm going to do the line of symmetry and the eye line. So this koala is slightly tilted on his head, so it's not perfectly straight up. So I'm going to start with a slightly tilted line like this. So it's not perfectly straight, it's just a little bit tilted to the side, just to show that his head is tilted to the side as well. All right, now that I have very, very lightly drawn my line of symmetry, I notice that the eyes are a little bit lower than halfway down on the head. There's a little bit of a bigger forehead space than there is the rest of this. So I'm going to draw my line of symmetry going across the head like this. So it's not perfectly in the center, it's a little bit lower than the center. All right, once I have my line of symmetry and my eye line, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the nose. It's a little bit easier for me personally to start with the nose. That way then I can measure out more evenly where the eyes and the mouth will go. All right, so the nose is right there on that line of symmetry, and also the top of the nose is on the eye line. So I'm actually going to start right there in the intersection, and then I'm just going to draw a frowny face going down like this to make up for the top part of that nose. And then if I zoom in here, if I look at the shape, here's the little frown making up the top of the nose. If I look at the bottom, it's kind of almost squared off like a box, but it has like rounded edges. So what I'm going to do in my picture is I'm actually going to go down, curve it, go a little bit flat, and then go back up and connect it to the other side. That way it's almost like a gumdrop type of shape for the nose itself. So tweak it if you want it to be a little wider. You can just move the line over a little bit. If you want it a little smaller or shorter, feel free to edit it however you need to in order to get the look of the nose that you want. So here I'm pretty satisfied with it. We got the good curve of the top part, and we got that kind of boxy look to the bottom part, which I think looks pretty close to the picture. Now on the nostrils, I can kind of see that there are little curves right here. They're like little bitty smiley faces on the edges of the nose. So right here close to the bottom, I'm just going to add small smiles going up and touching the side of the nose, just to give us a little bit more texture and illusion of it being an actual nose. I think this is the mouth right here. Okay, cool. All right, All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 little dots right here and here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to curve them up to where they go right there below the nose. And then I'm going to curve it back down. So it's almost like he's got a little bit of a sassy smirk, but you can change that up a little bit if you want to later. I'm just going to leave mine like this because I think it looks kind of cute. All right, now that I have my mouth line done, I do see the chin. The chin is actually almost even with the bottom corners of the lips, is that we have a little bit of a curve right here for the chin. So I actually already have that drawn here. I'm just going to darken it so that I know that I don't want to erase that later. And this will be the curve that makes up the chin that goes below the mouth. All right, now that I have the mouth drawn, I'm going to go ahead and do the eyes. If I look at the corner of the mouth and go up, that's about where my eyes are lining up with. So I'm going to go from the corner of the mouth up, right there on that eye line. I'm going to draw, they kind of look like little ovally shapes. So I'm going to draw a really small ovally shape here, and then do the same thing over here from the corner of the mouth up. As soon as I touch that line, I'm going to draw a little ovally shape. And then of course, as always, I'm going to do a little circle on the inside and then fill in the rest for a little highlight. And of course, if you want to change up the expression a little bit, like say if you want it to be smiling a little bit more, you can always just increase the look of the angles of the mouth to give a little bit more of a curve on the corners if you want to change up the expression. And that's kind of up to you what kind of expression that you want your koala bear to have. I just like to have my animal smiling because I think it looks cute. All right, now that I have my facial parts done, I'm going to go ahead and do the edges of the head and the ears. So on the edges of the head, I can see that there's a little bit of a fluff texture here and a little bit of fluff texture here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to add that Z line that we've been doing, and all it is just that kind of curvy W, or kind of like you're drawing V's, but you're making them slightly curvy. And all we're doing is we're just going to be drawing that on the sides of the face, like this. And then also on this side. Now I noticed that it's kind of shorter here and then it gets longer as we get closer to the edge of the cheek. So if you want to kind of space out the fluffs as you get closer to the cheek edge, then you can, and that can kind of help emphasize the fluffiness. And then I would also suggest doing a smaller fluff texture right there on the jawline itself, just so that we know that we have a gray area and we have a white area. So in order to do that texture, all I'm doing is I'm just wiggling my pencil back and forth like this, kind of in a zigzag pattern, not worried about making it too perfect. And if you need to tweak it or anything like that, feel free to erase. Remember, erasers are a very important part of the drawing process, and don't be afraid to use them because they can be very, very helpful. So here I notice that the cheek is a little bit more pointy, so that's why I've lowered this down just a little bit to help emphasize that kind of pointed cheek look, so that I am more satisfied with my drawing. But you can have yours be more rounded. I think that would look pretty cute too. All right, now that I have my cheek floofs done, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do the ears. If I go across from the eye, that's where the bottom of the ear is starting, if you'll notice here and here. And then it's going to go up until it gets to about above the eye. So my ear is going to start somewhere right here, and it's going to stop somewhere up here. So they've got pretty large ears, which I think looks really, really cute. So to draw these, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to draw a frowny face, like this, to draw the shape of the ear. And notice that I'm drawing this very lightly. This is because there's so much fur texture that it's going to cover most of what I'm drawing. That way I don't have to erase as much. All right, so after I've drawn the shape of the ear, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that fluff texture. So I'm going to start on the headline that we had before, and I'm just going to draw really long spikes to kind of indicate that they've got really long fluffs. And all I'm doing is I'm just doing that Z line. I'm just stretching that Z line out a little bit more so that we get a longer floof on the ear itself, and then I can erase any extra pieces that I have. I would suggest, just like what we did with the jaw where we drew the smaller floof lines, I would suggest drawing some smaller floof lines on the bottom of the ear just to help separate that head and ear out from each other. And then of course we're going to do the same thing over here, longer floof lines. And you can make these super long, you can keep these pretty short. That's kind of up to how you want to draw your particular koala. So after I get my floofs, I'm just going to erase this extra. I'm going to add a little bit more texture up here on the top of the head. And now I'm satisfied. All right, there are a couple more details like the color markings that I'm going to do later, but I'm going to come back to those. So before I move on though, I will erase the extra details that I don't need. All right, so here I have my koala's face done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move on to the body. I'm going to have to erase some of this because my arm's going to be in the way. All right, so what I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to start with the arm right here. So if I look at it, I probably need to draw the tree trunk before I draw the arm. That way you can see where the arm is going to be interacting with that tree trunk. So if I notice that the tree trunk is going below the body, and then it kind of makes a diagonal line going across the page. So I'm going to start down here until it goes below the body, and then I'm just going to carry it on like this. And you can kind of change up the angle if you want to, but it is important to kind of get this overlapping look. Just kind of help make it feel like it's sitting on the tree and not on the edge of the tree, because that would be a little awkward to sit in that way. All right, so now that I have my tree line done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my shoulder. So my shoulder is actually being overlapped by the head. So ironically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my shoulder right here on the corner of the neck. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a diagonal line like this, or a flat line, kind of depending on what angle that you want to go for, until it touches the tree, and then go a little bit into the tree like this. Once I have gone into the tree, I'm just going to stop right there, and then I'm going to move back down to the body area. So once you get this diagonal line, move back to the body, you're going to go down until you get to where you want to have the end of the arm. So notice that there is a very large gap here. If I'm measuring, it's about the same distance as the chin to the eye on this picture as it is to the top of the arm to the bottom of the arm. So I'm going to take this measurement here. I'm going to move down so that I'm about that far down in my picture, put a little marker dot so that I know that's how wide I need to make my arm. You don't have to be that precise if you want to go for more of a cartoony aesthetic. Doesn't have to be close at all, but it's kind of up to you with what you want to draw. All right, so now that I've gotten my measured marking, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually connect this with a smile like this. I'm going to go ahead and fully connect it to the actual arm itself, which is going to look like a weird, awkward hummingbird wing or something. Just trust me. All right. After I have fully connected it, then what I want to do is I'm going to draw the paw. So for the paw part, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this line into a slight frown, and then I'm going to cap it off with a curve like this. So I change this line, slight frown, and then a parenthesis. And then from that, I'm going to draw my claws coming out. Now, if I'm looking at those claws, I see that there is 1, 2, 3, 4. I see the full claw right here, and I see the full claw right here. This one is being overlapped, and then I barely see this one. So to draw that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a little bit of a frown, or a parenthesis right here. So this will be the main claw that I see. And then I'm going to move up just a tiny bit, draw the other claw by doing the same technique, just a little parenthesis. If you want to make it a little bit more realistic, you can add a slight slope at the tip like this, because they do have slightly pointier fingers. So if you want to add it to where there's like a diagonal cut there, you can, or you can keep it soft and round. It's up to you. Now on these other fingers, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start here, and then I'm going to stop on another finger like this. So notice that I stopped whenever I touched that finger because I don't see the complete finger. And then the very last one, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a frowny face to cap off the edge of that toe. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 toes, and I am good. If you want to, you can erase the inside pieces here so that we don't see them. I would suggest keep this inside piece though, because that helps like share the illusion that it's kind of being overlapped by the hand. All right, when you're done, you can erase the tree line, and you can also erase the inside of the body right here, because we want to change that up a little bit. If we look at this koala right here, we can see that its belly is creating a roll that makes a frowny face going up after the arm touches the body. So to create that, I'm just going to start right here. I'm just going to do a little frowny face going up, and that just helps make him look a little bit chubbier, which I think makes him look kind of cute. And then this is optional, but if you want to add that little floof, you can add a little bit of a floof on the bottom of his arm, and all I'm doing is I'm just doing that Z line to make it floofy. And then because I see that there is that kind of texture where there's shorter fur there, I'm going to go back and add kind of like a shorter zigzag line going all the way up until it touches that ankle, or not ankle, wrist area. So optional, but I think it would add a little bit more to the picture. All right, for the back leg, we can kind of see that all it does is it really just makes a kind of like a really exaggerated frowny face shape. We can see a little bit of a wrinkle where the leg is bent up onto itself. So this is the hip, this is the knee, this is the ankle, and that's the foot. So it looks really weird, but that's just the shape that it's going for. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw just a really big frown that goes like this. And then this is the key part. You want to go outside the body just a little bit, not too far though, okay? So just a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is once I have gone out of the body a little bit, whenever I curve and touch back onto the body, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to curve it in like this not fully, just get it a little bit inwards. This is going to make so we have the actual folded part of the leg like we see here. So be careful not to go too far in, but you want to go enough far in that you can tell that there is a wrinkle there, and you can even lighten it up a little bit if you want it to be not so distinctive. All right, so now that I have my ankle, I have my knee and all that stuff, the last thing I gotta do on that back leg is just the foot. So here I can see the bottom of the foot, and I can see 1, 2 claws. I can't see the other 2 because they're being overlapped by the leg. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to start right here in the bottom of the leg. I'm going to first do a small parenthesis until it gets a little bit further down below the actual leg itself, and then I'm going to curve it up like this. So that's kind of like I'm drawing like the letter J on the bottom of it. And then before I get all the way to the knee part, because I want to have my claws down here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a frowny face like this, and then just curve it back up to the foot. So it's kind of like I'm drawing a parenthesis on the side. And then if you did cover, I went a little too far out with my foot thing, so I had to erase a little bit. So you want to have like a little bit of a curve here for that bottom toe. And then for the other toe, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start it a little bit higher up on the leg itself. And then I'm just going to repeat that same process. So just a little bit of a frowny face. Then we're then going to cap it off and connect it back to this toe on that intersection. Now, if you want an extra detail, they do have claws visible. If you want to draw like little spikes on the tip for claws, you can. You can also do that up here on the top feet. You would be able to see the first 2 claws. You would not see the other 2 claws. So that's an extra detail that if you want to add it, you can. If you don't want to, no hard feelings if you don't. All right, so we are pretty much done. The rest of it's just really texture and stuff. So I've made my koala's head really big compared to the body, but that's okay because I make it looks a little bit younger. But if you made it different, that's fine too. All right, so all I'm going to do next is I'm just going to get rid of any lines that I don't need. And I'm also going to add a little bit more texture. So here I can see that we have, I don't know if, I don't see any tail or anything, so I'm not going to bother drawing it. But I do see that this part gets a little bit floofier on the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a little bit more floof to make the back a little bit bigger. You don't have to make it super big or anything, of course, but I just noticed that this, the floof makes this drop down a little bit more. So all I'm doing is I'm just doing that wiggly line like this. Doing a zigzag line, except I'm just curving it around the body is all I'm doing. So now I've gotten my kind of floofy texture for the bottom's half. Then I can erase the inside of the bottom. And then just continue adding texture in places that you see that might benefit from texture. So some areas that I see pretty distinct, they have such round bellies, which is really cute. So I can see a little bit of texture helping make that look more like a circle. So I'm just gonna add some wiggly lines in that particular area to help emphasize that circle. And then I can see like a little bit of a line right here. So you want to add a little bit of that kind of sketchy wiggly line to help add that little line for the curve of the back of the body. And then same thing on the belly, adding a little bit of a wiggle. Now, on this particular picture, I do not see the other arms, so therefore I'm not going to draw the other arms. If you ever look up at another picture of a koala, you might see some of them that do have their arms visible, like maybe back here or something. But because I don't see it, I'm not going to draw it. All right. So now that I have a little bit of texture going on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the face. I see that there is a kind of like a mask of sorts on his muzzle. So what I'm going to do for that is I'm just going to very lightly draw this kind of wiggly lines to help indicate the mask that makes of the koala's face like this. Just any parts that I see that look a little bit like a paler fur color. I notice that it goes up and around the nose. We got a little bit around the eyes that I'm going to emphasize just by doing that little wiggly texture. Which, if you want to come up with your own markings for your koala, definitely feel free to. I think it'd be really fun to create kind of your own textures and stuff for your koala, which would be pretty neat. And to have like a koala mixed with like a, I don't know, like a tiger and have like a koala with tiger stripes would be pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. All right, so now that I've added some basic textures, I don't want to go too crazy on the textures because koalas have relatively short fur with the exception of some of the smaller areas. So I'm not gonna go too crazy on my textures and stuff. I'm just gonna add a couple here and there, just to give it a little bit more texture, to make it look a little bit fluffier. All right, so now that I'm satisfied with the amount of texture that's on there, the last thing I'm going to do is do a little bit of shading. So if you want to shade it, feel free to. If you don't want to shade it though, you can always color it, or you can leave it as a simple line drawing. I think a lot of people don't, or not a lot of it, some people don't really see line drawings as finished drawings, but I absolutely love line drawings. I just think that they look fantastic. I'm just here lately, I've been on like a shading kick, so that's why I've been shading all of my drawings, is I just really like just the action of shading is really soothing, and like just seeing how like smooth that you can make your shading by holding your pencil kind of like this and then just very lightly shading it. It's pretty fun, especially whenever you're trying to make things pop out. Like if you go back over it and you press a little bit harder, then it can make it to where it gets a little bit darker and therefore it makes it stand out more, which I think is pretty fun to do for a drawing to make it pop a little bit more. It's just adding that shading so that it makes it feel a little bit more 3D and it makes it stand out more, is why I personally like to shade my pictures. So, which I don't shade all of my pictures that I do. Quite a few things I like to draw in pen, so I won't always shade all of my stuff. Sometimes I like to add like cross hatching or textures and stuff. And maybe in a future video or something, I might try doing drawing with a pen instead of a pencil. We'll see how that goes. All right, so here I've added a little bit of shading to my koala, and I think I am satisfied with the end result, which of course you can shade like the background and stuff if you want to, but I'm not gonna go too far into that because I'm more focused on drawing the koala itself and not really focused on the background itself. All right, so I hope you enjoyed drawing a koala with me, and I would love to see your results. All right, have a good day. Bye.